Hello, Carol. Well, welcome to my hangout. This is great. I've been looking forward to this, and
Hey,
and I'm gonna be honest. This is the first time I've seen you with your hair down.
really?
Yes, because I usually don't see you outside of the gym.
Yeah, and my hair is always up at the gym.
It's
This is what it looks like when it's down.
Yeah, this is different. I always think, it's funny when I do these. I always think that people are getting dressed up for me, and I realize that they're working and that they may be on some calls, and that's probably why they're dressed up. But
This is what we look like more often than not. You
yeah,
see it like 1 hour a day. That
I love seeing people like this. Um,
it's
so
weird though, isn't it?
it is kind of strange. It
Yeah.
is. It does feel a little bit weird, and even your background is nice. I
Thank you. This is my dining room.
appreciate
Makeshift
it.
office.
I love it. So, Carol, how long have you been a member of this gym? Has it been 3, 4 years? Is that how long it's been?
Um, yeah, almost three. I think I started in the fall 3 years ago. Um, but I stopped like after a few months and took 10 months off for back injury. Yeah.
I remember
So
that. What
not 3 years consistently.
what were you doing? What were you doing before this? Were you doing like functional fitness, and like how did you hear about us? Like how did you get involved in this gym?
Yeah. So when we moved to Newtown 5 years ago, we got here, looked for a gym. I knew about CrossFit, but that was nowhere on my like radar in terms of something I would ever do. Like to that point, I was kind of like, oh, go to the gym, hop on an elliptical, maybe do like a spin class or yoga or kickboxing or whatever. But like I hadn't really done any of this stuff, so I didn't even consider a CrossFit gym when we moved here. And so our options were the NAC, which was too expensive for what we wanted to pay. We didn't really care about all the extras. And then Optimal, which is another gym here in town. And so we signed up and I started going there and doing just my regular old gym thing, like get on the elliptical, bore myself for a half hour. And they had a functional fitness class there that they said, hey, come give it a try. And it's like similar to CrossFit. It's like a CrossFit style workout. Like there was almost always a strength portion. There was almost always some conditioning. Little bit different, like the strength, we didn't do like the Olympic lifts or anything like that. We did cleans, but no snatches, none of that stuff. There wasn't the focus on like the gymnastics movements.
Yeah,
And I was actually more like centered on powerlifting
right.
um, lifts. Like we deadlifted every week, we back squatted every week, we pressed every week. Anyway, so I did that. It was the first time I'd really ever worked with a barbell. I don't think I'd ever done a back squat until that point. So I did that for 2 years or so, and kind of just got to the point where I wanted a little bit more challenge, and I wanted to do some of the stuff that we weren't doing there that I knew that CrossFit did. And so Carrie and Steven Malinchak, Coach M, both coached there also. And I knew that they coached at CrossFit. I knew that they both worked out at CrossFit Newtown. And so I was like, hey, I kind of want to try it. So I came over for a class. I dropped in for actually like it was a terrible class to drop in on. It was so hard.
I don't know.
Um,
It was my class.
no,
Okay.
so Steven was coaching, but you were there.
Okay.
Because I remember meeting you and I remember thinking like this guy probably like I just had this like thought in my mind when we were like mid pull like in the middle of pull-ups. I'm like, this guy's got to be thinking like, what the hell am I doing here? Because I struggled so much, but it was so much fun. It was
What
great.
sports growing up? Do you have an athletic background?
Not really, no. Um, I mean, kind of, but not really. So I didn't do like team sports at all. When I was really little, like 9, 10 to probably 15, rode horses. So I was really into like horseback riding. I was such a little redneck. It was so cute.
How long
Um,
did you do that for?
do what?
How long did you do horseback riding for?
Probably 6 or 7 years.
Wow.
Like a long time. And you know that like I look back on it and I'm like, that is like a sport. It is like physical activity. You use your like legs a ton, a lot of core strength, arms. But it's not like a traditional, sport that people are into. Um, so I did that for a while. I ran cross country one unfortunate year in high school. Hated it. Hated it. I was so bad. Um, and so that's kind of it.
It's crazy because we see a lot of that with athletes that we have in here that don't have a sports background but move really really well. You move really really well, and like someone thinks like, well, how did they learn how to do that? And some people are just naturally good movers, and they're born like that.
Yeah.
And all they need is some guidance, and they become an extremely good mover because I think you're an excellent mover. And it's so interesting that you did horseback riding, and I'm so intrigued by it because I didn't know that. And
Mhm.
I think you need a lot of skill and talent to ride a horse.
It's like very physically intense because you basically hold yourself on the horse with your legs.
And you're
Like,
the whole time.
yeah, pretty much. And like it's mostly like the top part of your like your inner thighs. Like you don't really use like from your knee down other than to help steer. Like I used to be able to like put my feet up behind me on the saddle and like ride around with just like my thighs holding on. Um, so it's like really intense.
Let,
Uh,
let me ask you this: were you ever worried about getting on a horse? Because when I see them in Tyler, honestly, I see them walking around, and I'm kind of nervous that they might spaz out and something bad might happen.
Totally. Yeah. So I don't remember like how I felt the first time when I got on one, the very first time. I think I was just really excited. Um, but yeah, there were definitely times when I was afraid to like get up, depending on the horse, right? Because they're not all low key and like cool with you. I mean, most of them that you're riding are like fine with you on their backs, but they have their own personalities and they want to do certain things, and sometimes like they're in bad moods. Um, and some are better than others. And there were a couple of horses that I rode throughout the years that like I kind of got a little afraid of. I think that's actually why I stopped. So my last horse was so so sweet, but she had a streak. And we eventually sent her to a trainer, and the guy was like, "I can't believe you let your daughter ride this horse. Like she could go off at any moment." And I was like, "Okay." I mean, she was fine. She never did anything when I was on her, but you could always tell that she was like super tense and like wound up.
Horses, when I watch them walk by, I stare at the musculature on their shoulders and their thighs, and
Yeah.
such strong animals. For me, it looks pretty intimidating, but it figures that you would do something like that.
Of course. They are impressive animals. They're just like they're like what, 1,500 pounds of animal that you control.
It's crazy. Now, were you a good student? Because I look at you in class, you're like one of the most attentive athletes that we have in class. Like I can always count on you to give me that head nod when you're
I do
kind
the head nod.
like, were you? Did you get good grades in like high school?
Of course I did. That was so you said this to me before. You were like, I think you were probably a good student, and I was. And I think I always kind of was. Like I just kind of like I don't know if that's because my parents were like that's what they instilled in me, or if it's just like who I was. But yeah, like I worked hard in school. I worked as hard as I could. I think that like looking back on it now, it's funny. Like I'm glad I worked as hard as I did. But I kind of feel like that was like what I identified as. You know what I mean? Like I was a good student. And that was other things too. Like I did other stuff.
what else did you want to do? Did you like want to mess up or maybe party a little bit? Party a little bit.
Maybe I would have liked to do that. I don't know. Yeah.
It's funny because like you don't know, so you wonder like what did I miss out on? And what
Right.
I tell you from someone that partied his ass off in high school and college, you didn't miss much.
Yeah. Well, see, it's funny because it's not that I didn't have fun. Like I had fun, hung out with my friends, but like, I don't know. I was just kind of like, when I thought of myself, I was like, okay, you're a student first. And that's so sad, you know?
I think that's good. It's funny that you think about it like that because I think like I mean it, education is so valuable, right? And
Yeah.
I was a teacher at one time in my life, and I would watch these kids pay for school and come there and literally not care. You
Yeah.
know? And it baffled me because at the end of the day, I mean, education is one of the most valuable things that you can get. You know,
Yeah.
what did you end up? Where did you go to college at?
So I went to undergrad at Wake Forest
Where did
University down there with what I major in. I was a psychology major.
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought I wanted to do like clinical psychology um, after school. So, I took all the like really interesting psychology classes. I took like parent-child relationships and that was a sociology class, but I took a sociology of deviant behavior, which is super interesting. Like human sexuality I took. So do what?
I felt like that class in college was like an adult version of Cosmo magazine,
Yeah, it was really interesting.
like a
Uh,
class version, not an adult version, like a college course of Cosmo magazine.
yes,
And
like
one of the funny things I had experience with is my professor one day he came into class. He's like, today, and it was human sexuality. He goes, today we're going to talk about what it's like to fart in front of your partner. We actually had a conversation about it, and I'm like, this is absolutely nuts. Absolutely.
are we talking about this right now?
Talking about it, but we don't have to talk about that as a subject.
No. I meant you in your class.
That's what I'm looking around as a college kid. I was like looking around. I'm like, wow, we're really talking about this. But everyone was thinking it. Like
Yeah.
everyone was like, yeah, when is it okay, or is it ever okay, or have I ever done that? And I'm like, wow, this is a real issue. It's a real issue. We talked about it for probably like 45 minutes, and it went deeper than that, right?
Yeah.
Deeper, and actually, it was an opening into what's your trust level.
Yep. That like those relationship dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
how comfortable you feel with that person, what you feel comfortable sharing with them, those
That
kinds of things. Yeah.
you obviously went and continued your education somewhere else.
I did. Yeah. So because I thought I wanted to do like clinical psychology, basically, so psychology is funny. Like it's the kind of degree where like you have to get more school to do something. So I went to a master's program where just like a general like psychological sciences master's program, 2-year program, thinking I would do like preclinical stuff, figure out exactly what I wanted to do, and then probably go on to PhD in like clinical psych. So I did that at James Madison, JMU down in Virginia. And I got there and I took my first semester, I took like a counseling techniques class, which was really cool. Like I learned a lot of interesting things. So it's funny, earlier you were saying like, I know you like will nod your head, and I like sometimes I'll talk and I'll be like, I'll like respond like that. So those things have a name. Those are called like that and the huh. Those are called like, what are they called? Paralinguistic utterances. So it's a way.
Interesting word.
Yeah, right. I like to say it because it sounds cool. But it's a way to show that you're understanding somebody and listening to them and processing without like interrupting their conversation. So like in a clinical setting, a counseling setting, like that's really important. Anyway, sidetrack.
I was getting deep in that. Then I was thinking because I mean, I'm in a profession of communication and reading people and seeing interest level and trying to get them to trust me, and maybe trust me enough where they're actually able to listen to what I'm telling them as far as like coaching cues and stuff like that. And it's interesting because you say that stuff, and I do look for that stuff, right? Like, and I could tell when I'm coaching an adult versus when I just got done coaching my 3 college students. I almost have to like bring them back in real quick because I'll see them kind of wandering and not listening. So you're totally right that that knowledge is so valuable in any profession because it is all about communication and your skills of able to deliver a message, get people to trust you and listen to you. Like it's all really, really good stuff.
100%. Yeah. And it's interesting you say that because, like, I would guess, I don't know, but I would guess coaching, like what you do, is probably one of the, I mean, maybe like medicine is probably one of the few professions where you work with people of all different ages. And, you know, like you said, like high school students, college students, like they communicate differently and they're like, brain, you know, isn't as developed. Like some of those regulatory behaviors like are not as developed yet. So you really have to like know how to communicate with lots of different things, lots of different people.
And generally speaking, in that, I find that communication in general has changed.
Totally.
How people like, and especially now, a lot of the face-to-face stuff is just not happening.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
maybe even feel like it's crazy because people feel uncomfortable in this environment that we're in right now. But it's no problem. Like people would have talked in front of each other at one time, but now it's different, right? So like now people want more messages, right? You want more text messages, more emails, more stuff on social media. It's like the whole communication in general to get people to listen and deliver a message is totally changed.
Yep. And it was changing before, like it had already been changing right before COVID happened. Like, you know, I've gotten to where I like hardly ever call people on the phone anymore, or people hardly call me. We just text, and it's kind of easier, but it's a different way of communicating. And then like the COVID thing has made it even crazier because like I can look at you and have a conversation with you, but we're not making actual eye contact. You know what I mean? Like if I want to look like I'm making eye contact with you, I look up here.
Yeah, because I'm actually looking at you on my screen, and
Same.
at you. It looks like I'm not looking at you at all.
Yeah.
It's right because I think like human beings are they're social. Like
Yep.
we actually crave that, and society in general. And I'll bring it down to like the basic feature. You don't even have to talk to anyone anymore to order food, right?
Oh,
So I use the Starbucks app. I talk to no one. I get my drink. I go to
yep.
Wawa. I talk to no one. I get it. So then all those little things that show like appreciation, like thank yous, hello, how are you doing? Like all those little things are gone.
They get lost. Yeah.
They're all gone. It's I mean it's crazy. I bet the education you went through has totally changed now because levels of communication are different.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah.
So after you got out of, so you went to grad school, and what changed your mind? So when you left grad school, what did you do?
Well, so it's interesting. So I went to my mind got changed while I was there. So I was in that first semester in that counseling techniques class, and then I was taking like 2 stats classes. And you know, the counseling class was like, okay, I liked it, but like I really loved the statistics classes, which is like weird and super nerdy. And then I found out that they had this program there that was basically like quantitative psychology. So it's like research methods, knowing how to measure things that you can't see about people. There's this whole field of like assessment and measurement and something called psychometrics. And it has to do with like measuring these things about people that you can't tell by just looking at them. So different from like physical traits. So like personality, ability, knowledge, skills, beliefs, attitudes, all of those things that make us who we are. So there was this whole field, and this at JMU where I went had a program in that. So I stayed there for and switched into that and did my PhD there at JMU in assessment and measurement. So I kind of like switched gears.
Why aren't we calling you Dr. Carol?
Oh, because that's weird. I don't know who that is.
Wait, this is mind blowing that you just told me that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Surprise.
Well, we do these things because I had no idea that you had gotten your PhD.
It only means that I went to school for way longer than I should have.
I know, but that's I don't know if I can call you anything else from now on. I may just give you a quiet, hey doc.
What's up, Doc? Dr. C.
So you got that, and then where was your first like workplace? Like where did you start working, and what were you doing, and then kind of like how did that change, and what are you doing now?
Yeah. So my first job out of grad school was up here. That's why I moved here. Do you know what the College Board is?
Yes.
So they're the organization that like does at the SAT, college entrance exams, AP exams. They do some other stuff. So they're kind of in this industry of educational measurement, right? So I got a job, actually did an internship there my last year of school and came up here for that, and then stayed there as like started full-time after that, and I worked there for 10 years. And my job there was like a little bit more on the research side of things. So, you know, I didn't work on their tests so much as I did, like we did things like program evaluation. So all of their like educational programming, curricula, those kinds of things, we were doing like studies to see if those things worked the way they should, whether students learned as a result of them and things like that. Towards the end, I worked on, in this area, like trying to understand and measure like student motivation and study strategies and like kind of how they, like their attitudes and beliefs about school. And like see, A, can we measure that well? And B, can we help students grow in those areas? It's like all of the things that make you a good student that aren't necessarily like what you know and can do. It's like the other stuff that's important.
Yeah. Did you find out anything? Was there anything mind blowing about any of the results? Like when you're assessing like student motivation and study strategies, it's interesting because when I was in college, so I have my master's degree. You know, I studied for classes because they would lecture, but I would take the book, read the textbook, and make my own outlines. I'd read every page and make outlines, and I would actually read the whole book and study my notes, and that's how I studied.
That's like one of the best ways to study. So if you just read something and like highlight it and then reread the highlighted part, that's not really a super effective study strategy. But what you just described is like super effective, because basically you're like taking the information that's in the book, you're processing it, and you're putting it into your own words, and that helps like encode it into your memory. And there's something.
I lost you, Carol. We're just gonna wait for her to come back here.